Tradition is powerful. It shapes cultures, binds families together, and gives identity to entire generations. It tells us where we came from, and in many cases, it helps guide us toward a meaningful future. But there is a shadow side of tradition that is rarely spoken about. A tradition, when left unquestioned, can stop being a blessing and start becoming a burden. It can turn into a cage, locking people into patterns that rob them of freedom, individuality, and purpose. The Soto family's story is a clear example of this truth. For them, tradition meant one thing. Every child born into their home was destined to belong to the church. Sons were raised with the expectation of becoming priests or monks. Daughters were prepared to live in convents, cloistered away from the world. To outsiders, this seemed holy, admirable, even noble. The Sotos are blessed. People would whisper, but inside the family it was not a blessing. It was a command. It was a tradition that gave no room for choice. And that is where tradition can become dangerous. What begins as devotion can slowly transform into bondage. The very thing that is meant to connect people to their faith, their family, or their culture can imprison them when it no longer allows space for freedom. Think about it. Tradition at its best is a guide. It is supposed to give us wisdom from the past so we do not repeat mistakes. But when a tradition stops being a guide and becomes a rule carved in stone, it strips away individuality. It tells you this is who you must be, not who you are meant to be. In the Soto family, no child had the right to dream. If a boy wanted to become a farmer, an artist, or a teacher, his desire was irrelevant. If a girl longed for marriage, for children of her own, or simply to live her life outside stone convent walls, her wish did not matter. The family name demanded loyalty to tradition, and loyalty was stronger than freedom. What makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is that the Sotos were not cruel people. They truly believed they were doing the right thing. In their eyes, giving children to the church was the highest offering one could give to God. They thought they were securing blessings for their bloodline. But this is where tradition's cage is so deceptive. It convinces you that control is sacrifice, that bondage is devotion, that silencing your children's voices is the same as giving them purpose. We see this not only in the Soto family but across history. Parents force their children into careers they never chose because it's the family profession. Sons are pressured to run businesses they never wanted. Daughters are married into families they do not love because that is how it has always been. And when asked why, the answer is always the same: this is our tradition. But tradition without freedom kills the soul. It may produce obedience, but it cannot produce joy. It may give the appearance of stability, but inside it breeds resentment, regret, and sorrow. One of the greatest gifts in life is the freedom to choose. Choice is what makes faith real, what makes love genuine, and what makes work meaningful. But when tradition removes choice, it takes away the very thing that makes us human. It turns life into a script already written, where the child is just an actor forced to perform a role that was never theirs. The Soto family shows us this painful truth. When tradition becomes a cage, the future dies. Their name, once respected, eventually vanished. There were no Soto grandchildren, no Soto descendants carrying the family into the future. Their devotion to tradition cost them their legacy. The lesson is clear. We must ask ourselves, which traditions are we holding onto that are guiding us, and which ones are binding us? Not every tradition deserves to be carried forward. Some need to be broken so that freedom, love, and truth can grow. Now, this does not mean all tradition is bad. Traditions of kindness, faith, respect, family gatherings, storytelling, generosity, these enrich life. But traditions that silence, that demand sacrifice without love, that force people into cages, these must be questioned. The challenge is that breaking tradition often feels like betrayal. The Soto children surely felt this. To resist their parents' wishes would mean being called unfaithful, dishonorable, rebellious. That is the weight of a cage. It convinces you that freedom is sin and obedience to suffering is virtue, but real love sets people free, real faith invites, it does not imprison, and real tradition evolves. It does not demand blind loyalty at the cost of human lives. So what can we learn from the Soto family? We learn that blind tradition can cost a family its joy, its future, and even its survival. We learn that children must be raised with guidance, not chains. We learn that sacrifice without compassion is cruelty in disguise, and most importantly, we learn that tradition should never be stronger than love. Every person listening to this has traditions in their life. Some are good, some may be cages. The question is, are you brave enough to break the cages? Are you willing to say, I will carry forward what gives life, and I will let go of what takes it away? The Soto family's story is not meant to condemn, but to awaken. It is a reminder that no matter how noble something looks from the outside, if it costs freedom and destroys individuality, it is not a blessing. It is a prison. Tradition can guide you, or it can chain you. The choice is yours. Faith is one of the most intimate parts of human life. It is the quiet conviction of the soul, the unseen anchor in storms, and the fire that lights a person's inner path. But here is a truth that history, and the Soto family, teaches us. Faith can never be genuine if it is forced. True faith is born out of love, not pressure. It is discovered, not demanded. It is chosen, not imposed. And whenever a family, a society, or a tradition tries to dictate faith, it crushes the very thing it tries to preserve. The Soto family believed they were serving God by giving their children away to the church. To them, handing over their sons and daughters was a holy sacrifice. They thought that if their entire lineage lived under the vows of priesthood or convent life, they would earn heaven's blessings. But they failed to see the deeper truth. God does not want slaves. He wants willing hearts. Imagine the weight carried by young Isabel Soto when, at the age of 12, she was sent to a convent. Her small hands still itched to draw pictures, her curious eyes still longed to explore the world, but her life had already been decided. She was told that her faith was her future, but it was not her faith. It was her parents'. And when faith does not belong to you, it is not faith at all. It is obedience dressed as devotion. Miguel Soto, her younger brother, lived a similar fate. His heart beat for music. He dreamed of playing the guitar in the town square, of composing songs that lifted people's spirits. But to his parents, those dreams were distractions from the sacred calling they had already chosen for him. He was forced into the monastery gates before he had the chance to choose for himself. The faith he lived was not his. It was inherited, imposed, and demanded. Here is the painful truth. When faith is forced, it creates silence, not joy. It breeds resentment, not love. It may produce outward obedience, but inside it starves the soul. A child who is forced into religion may follow the rituals, but their heart remains untouched. They may whisper prayers, but those prayers rise from duty, not devotion. And a life lived out of duty rather than passion eventually withers. This lesson stretches far beyond the walls of convents and monasteries. Even today, parents force their children into a faith they have not chosen. They demand strict rituals without ever explaining the meaning behind them. They punish questions instead of welcoming curiosity, and in doing so, they crush the possibility of true belief, because faith grows strongest when it is watered with freedom, not fear. Think of a seed. If you press it too hard into the ground, it suffocates and dies. But if you give it room, sunlight, and care, it grows into a tree that stands tall on its own. Faith works the same way. When forced, it suffocates. When given freedom, it flourishes. The Soto family thought they were raising saints, but what they truly raised were prisoners of expectation. And because none of their children ever had the chance to embrace faith freely, their devotion was hollow. It looked holy on the outside, but inside it was sorrow. History has seen this mistake countless times. Wars have been fought in the name of faith forced on people. Children have been silenced, punished, and even disowned for refusing to follow the religion of their parents. But every time faith is forced, the result is the same: rebellion, silence, or a life of quiet misery. True faith cannot be handed down like property. It cannot be inherited like land or wealth. It must be discovered in the heart of each person. That is why so many who are forced into religion eventually walk away when they finally find freedom, not because faith is meaningless, but because what they were given was never real faith to begin with. It was control. And yet here lies the beautiful truth. When faith is chosen, it transforms a person from the inside out. When a child grows up free to ask, free to doubt, and free to discover, the faith they eventually choose is unshakable. It is theirs, and because it is theirs, no hardship, no ridicule, and no storm can take it away. This is what the Soto parents never understood. They thought they could guarantee holiness by force, but holiness only comes through freedom. They thought obedience was enough, but obedience without love is slavery. They thought they were building a legacy of devotion, but in truth, they were writing a legacy of sorrow. Their family line ended in silence because faith without choice could not survive. So what does this mean for us today? It means we must be careful never to confuse guidance with control. Parents can guide their children toward faith, but they cannot live faith for them. Teachers can inspire, but they cannot command belief. Leaders can encourage, but they cannot dictate devotion. Every soul must find its own way to God. The Soto family's somber history is a reminder that the most powerful faith is the one freely chosen. And if we truly want our children, our friends, and our communities to believe, we must allow them the space to doubt, to question, and to discover, because in those struggles, real conviction is born. Faith is not a chain, it is a choice. It is not a burden, it is a gift, and gifts, by their very nature, must be received willingly. So let us break the cages of forced religion. Let us raise children who are free to find their own relationship with God. Let us understand that true devotion cannot be commanded, it must be chosen. And let us remember that forced faith dies with the family that imposes it. But chosen faith lives on for generations, unshakable and alive. The Soto story whispers its truth across time. Faith without freedom is not faith at all. Sacrifice is one of the noblest acts of humanity. To give something valuable for the sake of another, to surrender comfort, wealth, or time, is often considered the highest expression of love. Parents sacrifice for their children, friends sacrifice for one another, and sometimes entire communities sacrifice for the greater good. But there is a dangerous truth we must confront. When sacrifice is stripped of love, it ceases to be noble. It becomes cruelty disguised as duty. The Soto family believed their sacrifices were holy. They thought they were offering the most precious thing they had, their children, to God. To neighbors, this looked admirable, even saintly. No family is as devoted as the Sotos, people whispered. But the truth behind the stone walls of their home was far darker. The sacrifices they made were not born of love. They were born of fear, pride, and blind tradition. And so, what they called sacrifice was, in reality, cruelty. Consider young Isabel Soto. At 12 years old, she was taken from the warmth of her home and placed behind the cold gates of a convent. Her parents told her it was for God, that her sacrifice would bring blessings to the family. But no one asked Isabel what she wanted. No one listened to her dreams of becoming a teacher. No one valued her passion for drawing. To her parents, her desires were irrelevant because tradition demanded she be given away. And so, what was presented as a holy sacrifice was, in truth, a theft of her life. The same happened to her brother Miguel. His father would proudly tell villagers that Miguel was destined for the priesthood, that he would carry the family's devotion into eternity. But Miguel's heart longed for music, for laughter, for the chance to live freely among people. His so-called sacrifice was not chosen, it was forced, and a sacrifice that is forced is no sacrifice at all. It is cruelty dressed in religious clothing. This is where we see the danger of sacrifice without love. Love considers the well-being of the other person. Love asks, what does this cost them? Love listens, but when love is missing, sacrifice becomes selfish. It is no longer about giving, it is about taking. It becomes a way to ease one's own conscience, to protect one's own pride, or to cling to empty traditions. The Soto parents thought they were giving their children to God, but in reality, they were giving them to an idea, a tradition that valued appearances over humanity. They sacrificed not out of compassion, but out of duty. And that duty without love destroyed the lives of their children and ended their family line. We must understand this. True sacrifice gives life, but false sacrifice takes it away. When a mother wakes in the night to comfort her crying child, that sacrifice is love. It gives life to the child. When a father works long hours to provide food for his family, that sacrifice is love. It sustains those he loves. But when parents force their children into roles they never wanted, when they strip away freedom in the name of religion or reputation, that sacrifice is not love. It is control, and control, when disguised as sacrifice, becomes cruelty. This lesson echoes far beyond the Soto story. How often do people sacrifice others instead of themselves? Parents sacrifice their children's happiness for the sake of appearances. Leaders sacrifice their people's lives for the sake of power. Families sacrifice their children's dreams for the sake of tradition. Each time they call it duty or responsibility, but without love, it is simply cruelty. Love is the difference maker. Love transforms sacrifice into something beautiful. Without love, sacrifice becomes a weapon. Think of this: if you give your child to a path they did not choose, you are not sacrificing, you are stealing. If you demand loyalty without care, you are not sacrificing, you are imprisoning. If you offer God or society something that was never yours to give, you are not sacrificing, you are betraying. The Soto family's tragedy teaches us that intention is not enough. They intended to honor God, they intended to live faithfully, but because their sacrifices lacked love, they produced pain instead of blessings. Their children's lives were not offerings, they were casualties. And what was the outcome? The Soto family name disappeared. Their legacy vanished into silence. The very sacrifice they believed would honor their bloodline erased it from history. Because sacrifice without love does not build, it destroys. For us today, this story is a mirror. It asks us, what are we sacrificing and why? Are we sacrificing time with our families for the sake of money? Are we sacrificing our children's happiness for the sake of tradition? Are we sacrificing our relationships for the sake of pride? If love is missing from our sacrifices, then we are walking the same path as the Sotos. But there is hope in this truth as well. When sacrifice is rooted in love, it becomes life, giving. It inspires, it uplifts, it creates legacies that last for generations. A mother's love-driven sacrifice shapes a strong child. A father's love-driven sacrifice builds a safe home. A community's love-driven sacrifice changes the world. The Soto family shows us what happens when sacrifice loses love. It becomes cruelty. Our challenge is to live differently, to ensure that every sacrifice we make, big or small, is born out of love, not fear or pride. To ask ourselves, am I giving this freely with compassion, or am I forcing this on someone else? Because at the end of the day, it is not sacrifice that honors God or preserves a family, it is love. And without love, sacrifice is just another word for cruelty. History is not just a record of what happened, it is a mirror of human choices. Within its pages lie victories of courage, stories of love, and breakthroughs of discovery. But woven into its fabric are also darker lessons, tales of misguided duty, where people believed they were doing right, yet their actions created pain, loss, and tragedy. The Soto family is one such story. Their devotion seemed noble, but their duty was misguided, and history preserves it not as an example to follow, but as a warning to remember. The Soto family believed their highest duty was to God, and in their interpretation, that meant giving every child to the church. Sons were destined to be priests, daughters to be nuns. Their devotion was admired in their community. Neighbors looked upon them as holy, chosen, even blessed. Yet, behind this admiration lay a heartbreaking truth. Their duty was misplaced. In the name of devotion, they sacrificed their children's freedom, silenced their dreams, and extinguished their family's future. This is where the lesson begins. Duty, when misguided, can become destructive. It can take what should be an act of love and transform it into an act of cruelty. The Sotos did not intend harm, they believed they were honoring God. But good intentions, when not guided by wisdom and compassion, can still lead to devastation. History is filled with similar examples. Parents have forced their children into arranged marriages, believing it was their duty to protect family honor. Yet countless young lives were broken. Leaders have sent soldiers into wars under the banner of duty, only to sacrifice millions for pride or power. Cultures have silenced women, the poor, or the different, believing it was their duty to maintain order. Yet the result was injustice and suffering. Each of these moments was born from a sense of duty, but because it was misguided, it left scars instead of blessings. The Soto family shows us this clearly. Their sense of duty blinded them. They were so focused on maintaining a tradition that they forgot the heart of faith itself, love. Duty told them to surrender their children, but love would have told them to guide their children with freedom. Duty told them obedience was everything, but love would have whispered that every soul must choose its own path. And because they chose duty without love, they left behind not a legacy of holiness, but a legacy of sorrow. This is the danger of misguided duty. It often feels noble. It convinces you that you are doing the right thing, even as you cause harm. The Soto parents did not see themselves as cruel. They saw themselves as righteous. Neighbors praised them, never questioning the cost their children paid. And that is why history is so important, because it allows us to step back, to see the bigger picture, and to learn the truth that those in the moment could not see. The lesson for us today is simple yet profound. Not every duty is righteous. Duty must always be measured against love, compassion, and truth. If our sense of duty demands we silence others, harm them, or strip away their freedom, then that duty is misguided. It may look holy. It may sound respectable, but if it produces chains instead of freedom, pain instead of joy, and silence instead of life, then it is not duty at all. It is oppression disguised as honor. Think of a father who believes it is his duty to control every decision his child makes. He may say it is to protect them, but in truth, he is suffocating their growth. Think of a leader who believes it is his duty to demand blind loyalty from his people. He may say it is for order, but in truth, it is for power. Think of traditions that silence voices in the name of respect. They may appear honorable, but in truth, they rob people of their humanity. History tells us the cost of such misguided duty: broken families, lost generations, and vanished legacies. The Soto name disappeared, not because they were wicked, but because their sense of duty consumed their future. They gave everything away in pursuit of holiness, but without wisdom, their sacrifice erased the very bloodline they were trying to honor. The beauty of history is that it does not just record mistakes, it teaches us how to avoid repeating them. The Soto family's story is a warning: never confuse misguided duty with true devotion. True duty is never blind, it is guided by compassion. True duty does not destroy freedom, it protects it. True duty does not silence voices, it nurtures them. If the Sotos had understood this, their story might have been different. They could have guided their children in faith while also allowing them freedom. They could have raised priests and teachers, nuns and mothers, monks and musicians, all serving God in their own way. Their family line could have continued, carrying forward a legacy of both devotion and life. But instead, blinded by tradition, they allowed their sense of duty to replace love, and history preserved their silence as a warning. For us, the question is clear: what duties are we carrying that may be misguided? Are we following tradition simply because that's how it has always been? Are we silencing the dreams of those we love in the name of respectability? Are we making sacrifices that cost others their freedom? History does not only exist in dusty books, it lives in the choices we make today. If we do not learn from the Sotos, we risk becoming like them, devoted, admired, yet misguided, leaving behind sorrow instead of blessing. The lesson is clear: duty without love is destruction, duty without wisdom is blindness, duty without compassion is cruelty. So let us learn from history's mistakes. Let us honor duty, but let us always measure it by the standard of love. Let us ask, does this duty give life or does it take it away? Because only duty rooted in love can build a legacy that lasts. There is one truth that cannot be denied: every human being is born with a destiny of their own. No child enters this world as an empty vessel for their parents to fill. They come carrying gifts, desires, personalities, and dreams uniquely their own. And the greatest responsibility of parents is not to dictate those lives, but to nurture them, guiding, protecting, and giving them the freedom to discover their path. That is why the story of the Soto family is so heartbreaking. They robbed their children of the one thing every human deserves, a choice. From the very moment a child was born in the Soto household, their life had already been written. Sons were destined for priesthood or monastic life. Daughters were destined for convents. There was no conversation, no curiosity, no moment of asking, what does this child long for? What stirs in their heart? Instead, there was only a command, this is who you will be. At first glance, it seemed admirable. To the neighbors, the Soto family looked holy, righteous, and set apart. But to the children, it was a silent prison. Isabel Soto, bright and imaginative, never had the choice to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. Miguel Soto, whose heart beat for music, never had the choice to follow his passion. Each child was stripped of the opportunity to say, this is what I want, this is who I am. And this is where the lesson burns bright. Every child deserves a choice. Without choice, faith is hollow, passion is silenced, and identity is stolen. Think about what it means to have a choice. Choice is not about chaos or rebellion, it is about ownership. When a child chooses their path, their decisions become meaningful because they are theirs. They may choose faith, and if they do, it will be real faith, stronger than anything forced upon them. They may choose a career, and if they do, it will be a calling, not a burden. They may choose love, and if they do, it will be genuine, not an arrangement. Choice is the soil where joy, conviction, and purpose grow. But when children are denied choice, they may follow the rules outwardly, yet inside, their hearts remain empty. They may obey, but obedience without freedom creates resentment. They may appear faithful, but faith without choice is just performance. They may live, but it will not feel like living. The Soto family did not see this. They believed that by removing choice, they were removing the possibility of failure. To them, giving children to the church guaranteed holiness. But the truth is, removing choice removes the possibility of greatness. For greatness is never forced. It is chosen. History shows us countless tragedies born from the denial of choice. Generations of children have been forced into arranged lives, marriages, careers, religions, not because of love, but because of obligation. Families have silenced their children's voices in the name of honor, tradition, or respect. And though the world applauded their obedience, inside those children carried invisible wounds. But history also shows us the power of choice. When people are free to choose, they rise. Think of great leaders, inventors, artists, and visionaries. Each one was free to follow the calling within. Think of children who were allowed to ask questions, to make mistakes, to discover truth for themselves. Those children grew into adults with unshakable convictions. Choice creates ownership, and ownership creates strength. The Soto children were denied this gift. Their lives were consumed by decisions they never made, and in the end, what did their parents gain? Their family line ended. Their sacrifices were admired for a season, but they produced no lasting legacy. Because a legacy built on forced obedience cannot stand, only a legacy built on freedom and love survives. The lesson for us today is urgent. Do not rob children of their choice. Parents, guide your children, but do not imprison them. Teach them values, but let them wrestle with truth until it becomes their own. Encourage their dreams, even if those dreams look different from yours. Let them stumble, let them rise, let them learn. Because in their choices, they will find their identity. Every child deserves the right to ask, who am I? What do I believe? What do I want to give to this world? And when they are free to answer those questions, they become people of conviction, not compliance. The Soto family teaches us the cost of ignoring this truth. By denying their children a choice, they denied them joy, freedom, and identity. Their family name disappeared, their sacrifices turned to silence, and their devotion became a cautionary tale. But their story does not have to be repeated. We can choose differently. We can choose to give children freedom instead of chains, opportunities instead of demands, guidance instead of control. We can break the cycle of blind tradition and create homes where choice is not feared but celebrated. This is not to say that choice means chaos. Boundaries are important, guidance is necessary, but true guidance does not silence, it empowers. True discipline does not crush, it strengthens. True love does not dictate, it invites. And when children grow in such an environment, they become people who can stand tall in the world. They will carry faith that cannot be shaken, dreams that cannot be stolen, and courage that cannot be broken. Why? Because it will all be theirs, chosen, not forced. The Soto family's somber history whispers across time. Every child deserves a choice. To deny, that is to deny them life itself. To honor, that is to set them free to become everything they were created to be. Stories are powerful. They can inspire, comfort, and ignite hope. But not all stories are meant to uplift in a sweet and gentle way. Some stories carry a sharper edge, a truth that pierces like a blade. These are the stories of warning, of tragedy, of mistakes that should never be repeated. And though they may be difficult to hear, they are among the most valuable, for they serve as cautionary truth. The story of the Soto family is one such truth. It is not a tale of triumph, but of well-meaning devotion gone astray. They sought holiness, sacrifice, and purity. Yet in their pursuit, they lost sight of the very essence of love and freedom. Instead of raising children to choose faith, they demanded obedience. Instead of nurturing identity, they erased it. Instead of leaving a legacy, they extinguished their own name from history. It is not an easy story to tell. It is not meant to make us comfortable, but it is meant to shake us awake, to warn us against the dangers of blind devotion, misguided duty, and choices made without compassion. And here lies the lesson. Motivation does not always come from shining examples. Sometimes it comes from dark warnings. When we see the ruin caused by others, it should stir in us a determination not to follow the same path. Think of the countless cautionary tales throughout history. Empires that crumbled because of arrogance, families destroyed by greed, communities shattered by intolerance. Each time, people believed they were doing what was right or necessary, yet history's echo tells us otherwise. Their stories survive not to inspire imitation, but to provoke reflection. The Soto family stands as one such echo. Their devotion without love became cruelty. Their duty without discernment became destruction. And their refusal to give choice became their undoing. That truth, as heavy as it may feel, is not without purpose, because it motivates us to live differently. When we ask these questions with honesty, we begin to shape a different future. We learn not to blindly repeat what we were taught, but to sift through it with wisdom. We learn not to follow patterns of destruction, but to choose new paths of healing. But here is the challenge: many people resist cautionary truth. They do not want to look at the painful stories. They prefer inspiration without confrontation, comfort without reflection. Yet, without truth, even painful truth, inspiration is shallow. It does not last. It does not transform. Real motivation is not about empty words, it is about clarity. Sometimes the clearest lessons come from looking at what happens when people lose their way. It is not pleasant, but it is necessary. Just as a warning sign on a dangerous road can save your life, a cautionary story can save your soul. Think of parents listening to the story of the Soto family. They may feel uncomfortable, even defensive. But that discomfort carries a gift, the chance to reflect. Am I guiding my children toward their dreams, or forcing them into mine? Am I shaping them with love or with fear? That reflection can change the course of a family's future. Think of leaders hearing the Soto family's story. They may realize how easily power and authority can become control. They may remember that true leadership inspires choice, not compliance. That realization can save communities from repeating mistakes of oppression. Think of individuals, ordinary men and women. In hearing the Soto's story, they may recognize areas where they too are living under the weight of imposed expectations. They may find the courage to step into freedom, to make choices for themselves, to live authentically. This is the power of cautionary truth. It wounds in order to heal. It exposes in order to free. It cautions in order to motivate. The Soto family may have lost their chance to rewrite their story, but we have not. Their silence motivates our voice, their loss motivates our gain, their tragedy motivates our transformation. Motivation, then, is not always about what to do, it is often about what not to do. And when we learn what not to do, we are freed to pursue what is good, loving, and life-giving. The cautionary truth of history is a mirror. It asks us to look deeply and honestly. What we see may not be flattering, but it is necessary, because only when we face the truth can we change the future. And so, the story of the Soto family becomes more than history. It becomes prophecy, not a prophecy of doom, but of decision. If we learn from their mistakes, we can create homes, families, and communities where sacrifice is guided by love, where duty is guided by wisdom, and where children grow with the dignity of choice. That is the motivation hidden in the sorrow. That is the light hidden in the shadow. That is the gift of cautionary truth. Raise your children with love, not expectations. Guide them, don't imprison them. Let them walk into faith, into life, and into purpose by choice, not by chains.